Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being here as always. Today we've got another NFT focused show, actually in the Cardano space, maybe other ecosystems as well in the future. And it's a unique type of NFT that was really appealing to me, my love of maps and cartography. It's going to make sense. Stick with us and make sure you stick around to the end because you'll have an opportunity to potentially engage in a challenge and win a CNFT prize. So with that, I want to hand it off to Garm and Ralph from the TURF NFT team to give a quick introduction to themselves. So Garm, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's an honor to be on the show. Like you said, we're Garm and Ralph, and we're building TURF, which is the first cartographic NFT project on any blockchain out there. And well, we're releasing it first on Cardano. I've been involved with the sort of Cardano space for quite some time already. I built Cardano space before, and now we're doing something else that's super exciting. But first, I'll let Ralph introduce himself as well.
Yeah, I'm Ralph. I'm a software engineer, and yeah, I love working with maps, building maps, creating beautiful art out of it. The first time I did it was more than 9 years ago of my hometown Rotterdam here in the Netherlands. I created a map that looks more or less similar to the turfs that we're creating now, but then obviously not interactive and just on print. But
Mm-hmm.
people really loved it, and yeah, I just realized that yeah, people love hanging a piece of their hometown on their walls. They have this real emotional connection to it. So yeah, then I thought, why not try this as an NFT and make something truly beautiful and interactive out of it?
Yeah, so what I think is great about these sort of cartographic NFTs is that everyone sort of lives somewhere and they know the map of their space around them, right? So you have a strong emotional connection with the place that you live in, and by sort of um, uh, um, uh, creating NFTs that depict your hometown, you sort of have the opportunity to obtain a one-of-one NFT showing your, well, home turf, if you will, and you can be the only one in your neighborhood to actually be in possession of that particular turf, which I think is pretty cool. Furthermore, I think these NFTs in particular, because they have this cartographic nature that's recognizable for a lot of people, they have the potential to sort of be attractive to people outside of the NFT or Cardano or crypto space as well. Like, um, I really like to show these to my non-crypto friends as well, like my mom, for instance, who has a
Yeah.
latent interest in NFTs, but she's not necessarily super excited about buying a profile picture that she can display on a service like Twitter she never
Mm-hmm.
uses, but she might be interested in, well, buying this NFT that's built on this cool technology that depicts her hometown. She might have some pride in actually, well, owning the one artwork that has her home on it. And well, maybe a cartographic NFT is pretty hard to imagine. So
Yeah.
maybe we should just show you what it looks like.
Please
Um,
do.
let's see. So right now, well, here's one of Melbourne that I'm going to show right now. It's going to load up here in a second. You'll see that the sort of all the elements of Melbourne are sort of floating into the NFT,
Mm-hmm.
and it actually has a lot of the very cool parts of Melbourne shown here
Mm-hmm.
on the little cartographic depiction. You can zoom in because it's all a sort of 3D model of the
Mm-hmm.
actual city based off of the map of Melbourne. And you can really sort of go deep into the details and, well, sort of circle the place that you live or where you used to live or where you met your spouse, perhaps, where you
Mm-hmm.
asked your spouse to marry you. Like there's a lot of cool ways that you can choose to sort of pick a turf that you have an emotional connection with. And
Mm-hmm.
then on the back here, it shows a lot of sort of the details about the actual location that's shown. So here we have Melbourne, the particular latitude and longitude degrees, as well as what's called a plus code, which is sort of the center of this exact map depicted in a code that you can always find back the exact location. Um, Yeah, I think that's sort of the base of what a turf
Hmm.
is. But then we've also created and added a bunch of additional cool features. Like one is the bear mode, which really allows you to see the details of the turf itself in all of its HD glory. I quite like
Yeah.
the black background myself. Um,
Yeah.
and it allows you to sort of dive even deeper into some of these details. Um, yeah, what else? Well, like I said, this is sort of a 3D model, and you can move it into any sort of screen that you like. So they look great on an interactive screen as well.
Hmm.
Like, for instance, your mobile phone, we have a mobile view, which I can pull up really quickly, and then you can just tab and interact with it in multi-touch as well, and use these sort of features to activate the bear mode on a mobile phone.
I can imagine, you know, just thinking back. I mean, when I was a kid, the all my family had, like you have like a lithograph or one of those like hand sewn maps from your aunt or whatever from where you grew up, your neighborhood. I mean, pretty low fidelity types of things. It only makes sense now that the digital art world starts to move in this direction. So as soon as I saw this, and when you guys showed this to me originally, I got to see it on my mobile phone. And the interactivity of it was very interesting. I can kind of orient it the way that I want. I can imagine this on a tablet screen, inset in a frame, hanging on my wall, where guests at my home or my family or whomever else can come and actually interact with that map, see that detail. There's like a level of interactivity here that's only achievable in the digital realm, which I think is very appealing. The question I had for you guys is, in terms of the accessibility, right? The idea behind an NFT, of course, people want things to be one of one. They want that scarcity. Have you guys thought about like fractionalization or the ability to be more granular in the way that you are selling out this cartography, such that people that live in, you know, live in Amsterdam or live in Melbourne or whatever, they can maybe be the owner or a part owner of their neighborhood in this space and display that share of the city. Just
Yeah,
curious.
I can answer that. So basically, what we came up with for this project is that we divided the world in a grid of squares that are 2 by 2 kilometers.
Hmm.
And many, especially world cities, are much bigger than that. And the way we
Yeah.
got to 2 by 2 is essentially that, yeah, exactly what you mentioned, the granularity. We want people to be able to pick their neighborhood. They might not be particularly interested in the rest of the city, for example.
Hmm.
Um, but it also needs to look nice. I mean, if you, well, zoom in too much, if you get a
Yeah,
very
it's like a
small
little
square,
box.
then exactly, then it might look a bit
Yeah.
dull. So yeah, we found that the 2 by 2 kilometers as like an optimal, yeah, optimal size there. So yeah, so that's what our minting interface will look like as well. You can browse the world map in a Google Map type of interface, and you can select the squares that you're interested in, and those will be minted on the spot.
Yeah, I can also briefly show what that would look like.
Yeah,
Um,
please do.
here we have Amsterdam, um, which is, well, a medium-sized city, I would say,
Hmm.
and it sort of shows these 2 by 2 kilometer squares that you can then actually have an NFT of. And then what's nice is you can search for Melbourne here, and we actually went through pretty great lengths in order to import the entirety of the world. And let me see if I'm able to find that exact same spot. I think it should be down. What? Well, Melbourne's pretty big, as you can see.
Yeah.
Um, and what you would essentially choose is then nine little squares. That's the biggest that we support right now, which would
Hmm.
create the actual turf that you saw just now. So
Yep.
that's this one. This is that's a 6 kilometer by 6 kilometer grid then.
Yep.
I see. So smallest would be the 1 2 by 2 box, and then the
Yeah.
largest would be
Yeah.
that nine block.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the part that was missing about the explanation of the NFT itself, which is the little number in the back, which, well, in this case, indeed says 9. If you would mint just once, if you just mint one square, it would say 1. Well, and obviously 4. 9 is the biggest we support for this initial mint that we're going for on the 31st of March. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, that will be indicated in the back as well.
Well, that brings us to that obvious question that I think a lot of people will have is, when is this coming available? What's the plan for how the NFT minting is going to happen? Let's talk a little bit more about that piece, and then also talk about your decision around deploying this on Cardano in the first place and what your path forward is. So let's start there on the mint. Like, what's the situation there?
Yeah. Well, so it's quite a technologically complicated system that we've built
Hmm.
with multiple databases running in the backend and interfaces that need to support the entirety of the world, etc. So what we first wanted to do is a very limited initial drop where we
Hmm.
just give allow list access to 100 people
Hmm.
because, well, we really want to make sure that the technology works and that we don't run into huge troubles when we do like a bigger drop. So that's why we chose for this limited initial drop first, and that's going to happen on the 31st of March. And the price per square will be 30 ADA. Um,
Hmm.
so that means that a 3 by 3 is well 270 then, I guess.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. That makes sense. And then that's going live March 31st. And how do people go about, or if it's still open, getting onto that list? And then if it's not still open, what's the next step? Like, when do you guys anticipate opening it up further to other folks?
It's still open. We are doing daily raffles now on Twitter
Hmm.
for a game we call Geo Guessers. So we post a picture of a turf without the name below it, and then people need to
Hmm.
guess where it is. So that's quite fun. And that will be the game that we'll play at the end of the show, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so that's still open. We're not at 100 people yet on the allow list. So yeah, happy to follow us on Twitter and try your luck.
Absolutely, yeah. That's at TURF _ NFT, and I'll share that link in the description below. Harm, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, well, I think if we sort of want to talk about next steps after that, because this is
Please.
only the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Um, we want to sort of try to move towards a much larger public mint over time, or at least regular drops where more and more people can get these turf pieces. But yeah, we really do first need to test the minting system because it is quite complex, and well, we're
Hmm.
definitely anxious of what would happen if we would open it up to the world entirely straight away. Um,
Yeah.
but aside from that, like we have a lot of, I think, very fun plans for Turf in store. I think a big one is allowing people to take the digital NFTs into the physical realm. Because
Hmm.
one of the features that we haven't showed you yet is what we call the art mode, where well, you essentially get a framed sort of preview of what would happen if you were to print your NFT physically.
Hmm.
That's also going to be available to holders in a high quality sort of export so that they can print themselves. But yeah, we also know everyone's super lazy, right? So we're going to offer a service where if you have this particular NFT, you can get a physical print delivered to your home at the press of a button.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that's one important part that makes this a lot more appealing to sort of regular people outside of the NFT space as well. That, well, maybe they don't want to have a touchscreen on their wall on day one where they start interacting with the NFT, and they'll just start with a beautiful print in their home. And as they start to cherish their own turf more and more, maybe at some point they'll upgrade to the interactive touchscreen NFT version. I think
Hmm.
that's going to be a very important part of sort of the plans that we have in the upcoming months. Additionally, aside from sort of fractionalizing ownership of the city in an NFT form, we also really want to create a lot of local communities, um,
Hmm.
and to sort of try to kickstart that a little bit, and to nourish sort of a community emerging in different cities. We want to give back to the community. So we're committing 10% of our profits to create artist grants, which we want to give to sort of artists picked by local turf holders, and then sort of ask them to create a turf inspired art piece. And then once they deliver the actual art piece, the idea is that we'll throw an epic reveal party with all of the sort of local turf holders, which you'll get to attend then. And I think that's a super fun way of, again, blending sort of the digital and the physical realm
Right.
through this new innovative technology. Like, I would hope that it's possible to do something on sort of a city level, but I think it's going to be sort of a tailor-made event depending on how many holders there are in a specific region.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, Ralph, from your perspective, I mean, you mentioned in the intro, you originally started experimenting with this, creating a map of your hometown. From your perspective, thinking about what types of interactivity that you can build on top of this now going forward. What are some of your think big ideas? I think what Harm's talking about around the like an artist collective and grants program is brilliant. Like, what are
Hmm.
some of the ideas that you have?
Well, if you look at more the digital side of things, obviously, then well, this is 3D model compatible, so you
Hmm.
could get a GLB export for the connoisseurs, which you can then import in whatever type of metaverse environment, I would say.
Hmm.
So that's definitely something we will be supporting at some point. Um, yeah, like and there's lots of more things possible. Let's see what else. What else can we talk about? Harm, any more ideas you have?
Well, I think, again, there's this sort of community aspect that we can capitalize upon. We've been getting questions of having sort of region-specific channels in the Discord, for instance, or region-specific
Hmm.
sub-communities for turf holders, which
Right.
is something that I think will naturally emerge, and you'll see the community really grow. Aside from that, yeah, these digital sort of objects, they are very suited to a metaverse environment. I don't think we want to promise that we'll ever make a metaverse of our own, but
Right.
just by the virtue of it being a map already and it having very interesting sort of structures, we can definitely see this being a great asset that you can import in a metaverse for fun games or fun textures in a sort of map environment that you want to build yourself. I think
Hmm.
there's a lot of potential there to do very cool and fun stuff for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, even as simple as having this be an extensible piece in some of the metaverse projects that already exist, even as wall art in a structure. I mean, people are already thinking about how they can create their own customized homes or offices or meeting places, gathering places in this virtual world. This is just populating that virtual world with cool art and interactive experiences that you can utilize. I mean,
Yeah.
on that same thread, I'd be curious, and I'm sure a lot of people that are watching or listening to this are also, like, where did the inspiration come for you to start this project on Cardano?
I think there's sort of three main aspects. One that's obviously very important to us is the environmental impact of
Hmm.
the blockchain that you're building on, us sort of taking the entire planet and digitizing it in a way. Yeah, we also don't want to be harmful to that same planet.
Hmm.
Um, Then I think secondly, a big part is sort of the community that exists in Cardano, and which is incredibly welcoming and sort of also gives you opportunities to share this kind of stuff and is able to sort of think a little bit outside of the box and see the potential in different projects like this, which I think
Hmm.
is really cool. And then thirdly, yeah, I think when I first sort of was looking at all the different blockchains that are out there to put NFTs on, I was a bit skeptical of Cardano at first, but I
Yeah.
read some scientific paper which sort of compared all of the different, well, back then at least, major blockchains. And I really liked that Cardano really stood out in terms of both the decentralization aspect, in how many nodes need to be compromised before you're able to sort of take over the network, which was well, I think it was two-thirds for Cardano versus 50% for most others. And then
Hmm.
thirdly, a much better sort of transaction per second on a theoretical basis on the long term than many of the other NFT projects that are out there. And then finally, yeah, if I compare sort of the native asset approach that Cardano has
Hmm.
versus the more, well, Ethereum virtual machine compatible approaches that most other blockchains have, I think
Hmm.
the Cardano way of working is so much more natural, and you're actually moving an asset around, instead of keeping tabs in a contract somewhere saying, okay, now this is the address that owns it.
Yeah.
I think those are probably the top three.
Pretty good rationales, I would say. Well thought out, at least. I will say that. I mean, from a technical side of things, I think your the conceptual difference between the native multi-asset approach, where your assets are managed at the base layer on Cardano, versus accounted for manually, more or less, in a smart contract, is a more natural way for people to unify all their assets into one wallet, into one place, which is useful. Beyond that, though, I think a lot of projects are, even in the NFT space, almost forced to think about what a multi-chain or cross-chain type of implementation would look like. Have you guys thought about that at all, and what that would look like?
It has been discussed, but I think there's no real details yet. At the
Hmm.
moment, we're really very much focusing on getting the last tech ready.
Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, going multi-chain is a thing now, but let's see first how this initial drop goes. Um,
I agree, but at the same time, um, this one, like this particular NFT project, I think if we want to get it to a very wide audience,
Hmm.
it's it would probably make sense to allow people to choose their own blockchain at some point. So I
Hmm.
do see a future in which, well, if you want to sort of get the turf of your own little small village that you grew up in, because Melbourne has probably been sold already by
Yeah.
then you can choose yourself whether you want that on other environmentally conscious blockchains, like maybe we'll support Polygon at some point or something. But
Yeah.
it's not something we're focused on right now, at least.
Yeah, you got to get the first thing done first before you think about the details around the future. I guess my last question for you, it would be, just from your perspective. It's always interesting to hear a builder's perspective, especially in the Cardano space, where there's not a lot of discussion around that. A lot of it's like price talk and what's being built, but there's not a lot of talk about what is it like to build things. What's been the biggest challenge for you guys building on Cardano and learning that space and all that?
yeah. Well, I think there's already pretty decent tools out there that made our
Mm-hmm.
life much easier, at least building the initial version of this project.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, I don't have any comparison to other blockchains, so I'm not sure what
Right.
type of challenges I would have faced there. But for
Mm-hmm.
me, at least, yeah, it's like the Cardano community is quite welcoming, and I think also the tech and all the tools that are built around the Cardano blockchain are pretty welcoming and pretty beginner friendly as well. So I've had quite good experiences with it. Yeah,
Good
that's all I
deal.
can say about it. Yeah.
So I've also seen the space change from the very early days of Alessandro minting the first NFT on Cardano to where we
Mhm.
are now. And it's definitely a lot easier to get started now, I would say, especially with NFTs. I think if you go deeper into more complex smart contract stuff, however, there's definitely a high barrier to entry for Cardano
Yeah.
where you need to dive deep into Haskell, which is pretty complicated. And I think there's also um, a well, in the crypto space in general, there's a mindset of everything is possible
Hmm.
at all times. And it's true because it is possible, but for Cardano in particular, because it's a different approach to creating something that we would refer to as a smart contract, it requires a different way of thinking from, well, what you would do on an Ethereum virtual machine, where it's really you're able to put code on the blockchain. Whereas for Cardano, it's a um, transaction input and output validator, which
Hmm.
forces you to think in very different ways, which well, I think is ultimately beneficial to the ecosystem because it sort of within these constraints is going to allow us to do a lot of things in much more scalable manners and in
Hmm.
much more secure manners than what you see in the sort of free sandbox of Ethereum, where there's a lot of, well, errors happening, and because of that, a lot of hacks and well, a lot of theft. Um, but I do think it's a larger barrier to entry for a lot of people.
Hmm.
And I would maybe say, like, if you have the grit to really learn Haskell right now and truly master it, yeah, there's like a lot of opportunities to get a lot of great gigs because a lot of people want to be building in this space, but it is challenging. So yeah, I can only recommend that more people get started doing that, sort of push through the first barriers of adoption, and then we'll be seeing a lot of beautiful stuff being built.
Yeah, for sure. The deep I've kind of noticed this trend from folks I've talked to that are building in the Cardano space, and it's as soon as you move from like creating assets and creating off-chain code to move those assets, in some cases building minting engines, and as soon as you move into smart contracts and building complex smart contracts, that's when some of those challenges start to creep in. And I think it's going to be the same maturity that needed to get there for the asset part of things and for the interaction with the Cardano blockchain in general. It's going to have to come with the smart contract piece as well. Best practices, templates, standards, things like that that are prevalent in Ethereum will eventually come as well in the Cardano space and make life a lot easier. So thanks for indulging me on that query into your experience building on Cardano. I think people are always interested in that. And that being said, as we kind of approach the tail end here, we wanted to do like one of those turf guess games. So do you have a thing we can toss up on the screen, or I can post something in the post production as well?
You're right. We are giving away um, 5 allow list spots to anyone who is able to sort of figure out the city on a blank turf. It's what we call the GeoGuessr game. And well, we'll be sending out a tweet as soon as this video goes live. And if you follow us, retweet that tweet, and then DM us the city that this turf is in, then you get a shot at winning an allow list spot. And then as a sort of additional sweetener and a bonus on top of it, we'll be raffling an unsigned algorithm NFT that I minted myself, sort of partially because I've been sort of watching videos by Hashoshi on unsigned algorithms. And well, when I saw it, I was just like, wow, this is really cool art, and it's something I would want to hang on my wall. And I think that's only fitting because it's been such an inspiration to us as well to sort of pursue more art-focused NFTs that we think are super cool.
That's incredible. Well, thanks for watching the OG Unsig show. What I will also say is, folks, if you're watching this, give it a guess, right? DM them on their Twitter, which I've again linked in the description below, and subsequently you can also win a chance at an Unsig pretty great opportunity and whitelist spots, right? So it's a fun game. You have nothing to lose and a lot of cool stuff to win. So please do give it a try. Most of all, I want to thank Garm and Ralph for taking the time to join, talk about this project. It's been a while since I've done a Cardano NFT, sort of point of view or shared one out, but I just thought this art speaks for itself. And so thanks so much, guys, for joining me.
Thank you for hosting us.
Thanks so much. It was great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So make sure you watch this space, folks. I'll bring hopefully more content about this as things wear on. Maybe we'll do an update here in the coming months. Most of all, thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your week ahead. And until next time, cheers.